Hello everyone, I'm Mike with Full Detail Automotive. Thank you for purchasing the right-hand drive RX-7 ABS Delete kit. This video we're going to walk you through how to install the entire kit, start to finish, with removing the ABS unit to installing the kit, and then at the end, bleeding it. So you guys will be able to see the whole process. Of course, if you have any questions or comments or anything, of course all our contact information is down in the description. Feel free to reach out. We'll get anything sorted out for you. All right, so before even installing the kit or even touching the car, you got to make sure you have all the stuff you need on standby. Most important thing, you need brake fluid. You could buy the gallon jugs, but you'll need at least 2 quarts of brake fluid. Whatever brand you want, .3, .4, .5, if you're about that life. But .3 or 4 works perfectly fine. Store brand, Prestone, it doesn't really matter. Then, of course, you need the kit itself. Go through it, make sure you have everything as shown. Make sure that you have all the pieces and parts there, because if you don't, then it'll be real annoying when you go to install it and it's not there. Then, of course, you'll need a drain pan to catch all the brake fluid that's going to come out, of course, and at the end when you do the bleed. And you might want to have some shop towels or rags and things as well to help with the cleanup and to control the mess. Step 1 is to raise the car and take the front wheels off. So the first step in the engine bay that you want to do, obviously this one is modified, but the first step you want to do is get your upper intake arm off, whether it be stock version or, and of course the twins, whether it be the stock version or whatever aftermarket situation you have going on. So upper intake arm, and then in addition to that, we're going to remove the charge relief valve. Also, if you have the twins, we'll remove that as well. Now, if you're single turbo, of course, all these steps you can skip because none of this exists and you have plenty of space. We're only removing it for accessibility. You can also remove the strut bar if you want, but it's not necessary. Then the charge relief valve, there is a squeeze clamp, one on top and one on bottom. Just grab whichever one is more accessible for you. In this case, we're gonna go for the bottom one. So joke's on us, we didn't actually have to take it off. Fortunately, it just has some rotation in it, and we were able to just push it right out of the way. So that's more than adequate to get the heat shields and everything off if you have the heat shields, but if you to access all that, so that's fine. All right, so next move, we're going to remove the firewall ground here off the back of the intake manifold. You may or may not have this or something like it, but either way, take it off and move it out of the way. Then you're gonna unbolt your map sensor from the firewall. It's a single 10 mil. You just go ahead and put the bolt back in so you don't have to keep track of it. Unplug it, and then take the vacuum line off the bottom of the map sensor. Next thing, we have these holders here that keep the lines organized across the top of the firewall. We're going to remove all of those. So you have a couple ways of doing this. The way I'm going to do it is we're going to use a plastic trim tool to actually pry them off of the firewall, and then we're going to use this flathead here to pop open the actual holder so that we can remove it off the lines themselves. So the holders for the lines, this is what they look like when they're off and without the rubber insert. But the clip here on the bottom, this is what you have to disengage. So as you can see, it interlocks. So if you tug on it, it likely won't come out. So the whole point of using the flathead is just to go in there and just pry it apart. so that they come off. On top. All right, moving on to the ABS plugs. They're pretty big and they're not exactly easy to remove. Sometimes they will fight. They don't want to come undone. So what you can do that will help is you can actually disconnect them from the ABS mount itself. You could either do it through here, but most times if you just grab the plug and just tug on it or twist it, it'll remove just like that. You have better access on it. So we're going to unplug these. You'll stuff those out of the way, and then you can just prop this next to the wiper motor there, so that it's not like in your way. Then after you get the plugs unplugged, there's this ground right here. This pretty big one. It is the ground for the ABS unit. You're gonna want to take that out as well. Set the bolt off to the side. You won't need it anymore. Moving on, we're going to start on the actual mount bolts for the ABS unit. There are 3. Our first one is here, the reference point. All right, then this is our second one here. And then we have our third one. You can see it in between the AC line and the heater line. These bolts are all 12 mils. You're going to go down there with your long extension and crack them free. They might be a little stuck. These bolts are a little funny, so they're gonna be a little more difficult to remove. Next, there is a 10 millimeter nut, or a 10 millimeter bolt that holds the heater hard line to the firewall. We are going to remove that so that we can gain better access to the hard line that splits into the rear brakes. It's right there. And now this is preference. You don't have to do this, but it does make it easier to access the hard line. Next, we're going to be removing the hard line from the ABS unit that attaches it to the front left caliper. Now there's a bunch of lines on here that they go all sorts of which ways, but there's only one you need to be concerned with, and it's this one here next to the wiper motor. This is the one that comes out of the unit and goes to the caliper. It's the only one you have to remove. Use a line wrench. If you don't have one, get one. Now when you take this line out, there might be some brake fluid, there might not be. It varies. But once it's out, you can bend it up out of the way. We're removing this line entirely with the install of the kit, so bend it. It doesn't really matter. The removal of the rear brake hard line can go south really fast. But the way you can help yourself, in this case, it had a little bit of surface rust on it, so I went ahead and sprayed it with some penetrating oil, and it's soaking some. There is a bolt on it that secures it to the firewall, but you don't want to completely rely on that bolt. You're going to want to double wrench this one. So I use an adjustable wrench and then the 10 millimeter line wrench in order to break that free. The actual size of the coupling nut, I don't think it's metric. Couldn't find one that actually fit on there. 16 was too small and a 17 was too big. So if you want to play that game, you can, but adjustable wrench will be fine. The torque on this shouldn't be all that high to begin with. If your nut is rounded out or rusted or anything like that, take more precaution. but in this case, it's fine. So we'll go ahead and just remove it by normal means. All right, unfortunately, this one came off. And then we'll just go ahead and twist it off the rest of the way. So once you have the line all the way out, you'll just lift up on it and push it off to the side. Now, it's not really going to leak. It might a little bit come out, same, every car is a little different, but you'll be fine to leave it like that without having to worry about it draining fully. And there is one more line holder over here, right under the wiper motor. Same process of getting that one free. You just stick the flathead in there, pop it open, take the thing off. Now that'll be it for that side. Now we're moving back over here to the actual master side. So of all the lines and things that are here now, you'll only need to be concerned with is this one, and this one. These two here that are on the actually on the master itself, same thing, 10 mil line wrench. You can break these free, you don't have to double wrench them. They're mounted pretty well. Those will come right off. This one here that actually runs to the front caliper, you're going to want to double wrench this one the same. You're going to hold the center here with an adjustable and break it free on the back side. You're going to break it free on this side, on the actual firewall side. And then same with these. Once they come off, they're not going to leak a great deal. So you don't have to worry too much about having to catch anything. In fact, these are completely dry. All right. Cool. And then the divider here in the center that holds the ABS lines along with the clutch line, you're going to want to disengage the clutch line from that holder so that all the ABS lines are just free to wiggle as they are. And with all of that done, you can grab the ABS unit and lift it up and out of the car. So next move, we're actually going to remove the two hard lines that went from the ABS unit and actually go down to the caliper. So first thing we're going to do is pop it out of the holder here. And then we'll get this piece out later, but it comes out. Then we're going to move down to the wheel well. So we're going to remove the hard line here from where the soft line meets. PB Blaster, whatever penetrating fluid you want to use. Set yourself up. You don't need to use a wrench or a double wrench this one. It should just come right out. But if it does start to give you a little grief, put a wrench on it. All right, and make sure you have your drain pan ready to catch it. And then same thing here, just pull it out of its holder. Now to snake the line out the whole way, it's going to be a series of bending and pulling, bending and pulling, bending and pulling. There you go. And this line is trash. Then we're going to move on to the other side and do the same thing. Okay. And then we're going to come up here to the engine bay. And then you're going to remove the other side of this line here. So same like the other one, you're going to put your wrench here on the center section and then break that free. And then there is a holder here and you're going to want to break the line out of that. Now keep in mind this line is, or these lines here, you're not using them again. You know, you're not putting ABS back in this car. So if you need to bend them and do whatever you got to do to get them out, do what you have to do. It's fine. They have no home after they come out. All right, and same thing like the other one. It's just going to be a series of bending and pulling until it ultimately comes out. So with the hard lines out, now we're going to move on to draining the master. And the only reason why we're doing this is to mitigate the mess. Because once we take the banjo bolts off the side of it for the remainder of the ABS assembly, it's going to start draining out. Now, you don't want to suffocate the master and purge it completely, like through the line with pressing the pedal, because then you have to bleed the master, and you don't want to get into that. So what's sufficient is actually just draining out the reservoir. So you can have it set up kind of like this with a baster or a straw or whatever you want to do in a container or whatever, and then you just suck the fluid out until the front half of the reservoir is dry. The back half is actually separate, and it's for the clutch, so you don't need to drain that back half. All right, so now we're going to be removing the hardline assembly from the actual master. Now that it's all drained out, we can take these things off, break those banjo bolts, and it'll be minimal leakage while we continue to work. So in factory configuration, there's a bunch of hardware on here. There's also heat shields and things that we won't be reusing and all that. So hardware, we have the 110 mil here that holds this coupler. We're going to take that one off. Then we have this 10 mil here in the front that holds the that twin assembly here to the bracket. So go ahead and take that one off. All right, and that'll allow these lines to bend freely off of the bracket, which is what we'll need here in a minute. So for the brake fluid level switch, you just pull up on it with your fingers like this, and then it'll come up off of its holder. So we have a 10 mil here, right on top, this one, and then the one right below it. Take those two out. All right, then basically the same thing on the other side. We have this upper one here, and then this lower one here. So these two are next. And this is what they look like inside of the car. Just like that. That's your hardware. All right, then to remove the actual hardline assembly, it's actually braced with the nuts that hold the brake master to the brake booster. So these two 12 mil nuts here, one on either side, have to also be removed. And the kit does come with 2 new ones of these, so you will not be reusing this hardware. Okay. And with the bracket free, you can bend the 2 hardline assembly out of the way, and as needed, to remove that. All right. Now we can actually remove the 2 banjos, one for the front and one for the rear, to remove the last piece of the ABS line assembly. They are 14s. And there's that. All right, so that concludes the disassembly portion of it. You have the ABS unit out, you have the hard lines out, the master is drained, heat shields are off, all the ABS pieces, with the exception of the sensors. We'll get to those later. With the exception of the sensors, everything is off. Now we're moving into the assembly part, where we're actually taking pieces of the kit, and we're going to start putting them in the car and getting everything set up. First pieces we're going to use are these here. There are 3 of these in the kit. You'll know that they're the same because they're the same. And they also have these markings here on the flats. These adapters will go, 2 of them go into the brake soft line down by the caliper, and the 3rd one goes into the rear brake hard line on the firewall. So we're just going to take the fitting, and the pointy side is going to face out, and this is going to go in here. It just threads right in. And then you'll just tighten it nice and snug will do. You don't need to smoke these things down. Just like that. And then when you install it on the opposite side, same thing. You'll put this one here into the rear brake. Just like that. It threads right in. And it is a 13 mil if you want to use a regular wrench, or line wrench is advised, but either will be fine for this application. And then same thing, you're just going to want to snug it down. You don't need to murder it in there. You'll feel it kind of stop. It'll tell you that it's happy. You'll know. And if you're unsure if it's too tight, when you go to bleed it, it will leak. And that's how you know it's not tight enough. So there's your torque value. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our plug, the plug that comes into the kit, and we're going to install it in the hole where the factory hard line went through. Now it's going to be a tight fit. That's the point. It's a plug. So you may need to use a flathead or a pry tool or something to help you get it seated in there, but it will seat. And there you have it. It's nice blocked off. Looks factory or something. Now, of the lines that go in first, it's going to be your long line here. It has the heat sheath on it. That's how you know this is the one you need. This goes to the front left caliper. Now, the way this line routes is we're actually going to go under the fender. Now, this car doesn't have any fender liners installed in it, but yours will, likely, hopefully. And if it does, what you're going to do is you're going to peel it down from the inside here. All you need to do is access this area here. So you'll peel the fender liner back just a little bit, and this is going to be the hole that the brake line is going to come through. So you'll feed it in through here, like so. Lay that on top. Then you're going to take the line and you're going to thread it on to the fitting that we installed earlier. Okay, don't tighten it down yet. Then what we're going to need from the kit are these pieces here. It's the 2 1/4-inch clamps along with the 2 short flat Allen heads with the nuts on them. These are what's going to secure this line in the wheel well. So the 2 holes that we're going to use for these clamps to go through, it has these factory grommets already in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop those out. And then we're going to drop our 2 Allen bolts down through there. Okay. Then we come back down here into the wheel well. You see them are now hanging down right there. Then you're going to take 1 clamp. You're going to put it on here. Take the other clamp, put it on here. With 1 hand up and 1 hand down, you're going to push down like this. And thread the nut on. And you'll do the same for both sides. All right. And that's how that goes. Now, if you want, you can slacken it some, and you can actually use that bracket, or you don't. It's kind of up to you. Just like that. And that's where that line will live. Just like this. Then we're going to come up here into the engine bay. The map sensor harness will usually live here on this little tab, but you're going to take it off of there. And you're also going to remove the plastic retainer that lives on that point. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the 3/16 clamp along with the single M6 bolt with the nut on it, and that's what will hold the line there. And this is that tab that would hold the wire harness. You squeeze it, it comes out. So the brake line routes under everything. Just like this. Now the thing about this 3/16 line, or 3/16 clamp, is that it is too small. Yes. When you go to install this, it's not going to close fully around the clamp, which it will install on the clamp. Like this. So when it's under there, it'll live like this, under there. So that it holds itself up. Okay? And what you may need to do is use a flathead or something small and get the prongs to actually align some. Then stick it under there. So you just bend the tab out a little bit, get the bolt to slide right through, and then you'll put the nut on the back side. So in the right-hand drive car, the wire harness doesn't mount up here on the tab like it does in left-hand drive. It actually mounts down below on the chassis. So this tab is kind of useless, but once you have the bolt in, you can bend the tab back down, and then we'll come back and tighten that clamp at the end. Moving on over here, like I said, it goes under everything. Oh. So once we get here, it'll go through the clutch hard line here. And if you didn't, you should have. We do offer a tucked clutch hardline. I wouldn't call it a kit, but it is a tucked clutch hardline, so that this lonely line up here on the firewall doesn't have to be anymore. Let me see, does this go? And it will go here between that and the reservoir line. And then you'll just feed it through. All right, so this is your path here. As you can see, it's on the firewall and it's going down between the booster and the clutch master. It's as far back under everything as it can go. All right, so once you have that line sorted out here, you're just gonna leave it up like that and we'll get to its final routing in the end. Next line we're gonna install is our short line along with our pass-through grommet. The short line, you'll notice a short line because it's the shortest line. So grab that one. The grommet goes down here through the hole that the factory hard line came through. So here, see the hole? The grommet goes in through there. And there you go. Then you'll feed this line through, straight end first. You feed it down through the grommet and it'll come out into the wheel well. Where we will finger tight it onto its associated fitting. And into the factory holder, this one can go if you so desire. All right, so now we have that line up here and it's going to feed onto the opposite side of the brake master. All right, so the next part we're gonna need here, now that our lines are ran, is the double banjo with the short banjo bolt and of course the 2 washers. So we're gonna go ahead and thread that here onto the rear port. Just like so. And we're gonna leave it loose so that you can still rotate it. Then you're going to take your shielded line, shielded hose, and you're going to thread it onto this bottom port here. By hand, just as so. All right, then you're gonna take your other line, one that you routed through the wheel well there, and you're going to pivot it forward some, all right? And then you're going to thread this line onto it. So it is going to be a little bit difficult, but it's fine. It's supposed to be that way. And if your line up here isn't facing the correct direction, the reason why it's finger tight down in the wheel well is so you can clock this. If you tighten it all the way, then it's going to be locked at whatever angle, but we don't know the angle yet because we haven't installed the line. So you leave it loose, manipulate it as you need, and then thread it onto here. You only need to thread it by hand. Do not use a wrench. We're not there yet. If you can't thread it with your fingers, then you need to adjust until you can. Do not strip this one out. All right, and there you have that. And that's how that'll be. So everything is still loose, which it should be. Then what you're going to do is you're going to pull the line, the shielded line, up some to kill some of the slack, and you're going to push it a little more behind the booster, all right? Okay, then once it's up, you'll come back over here, and you're going to kill the remainder of the slack through this line so that it lives fully under the lip of the firewall. This is how you get it to stay under there without drooping. And then you'll make sure that the clamp under there is up and down. And as you can see, the line lives completely under the lip. It doesn't hang down, it doesn't sag, it doesn't anything. It's just under there because of how we have it pulled. So we're going to come back here, and now that all of this is how we want it, now we can lock down this banjo. It is a 14. And you want this position to be relaxed. So it should just rest naturally the way that it'll rest. And you don't want to smoke this banjo bolt down. It'll seat, you'll feel it stop. It's nice and comfortable. Now we're going to take one of the two larger nuts that we have here. This is what are going to replace the two that came off, and they go onto the mount points for the brake master. We only need one for right now. And it'll probably make a little more sense to put that on first because it's easier. Then these fittings here for the stainless lines, they're actually half-inch. So you can use a line wrench if you want. If you can't get one to fit, kind of like that. You can also use a 13. And before you tighten this line down fully, give it a peek down by the caliper and just make sure the line isn't all twisted up from when you had to clock it to get it on here. It might be a little hard to see if it is because there's no markings or anything on the line, but you'll be able to tell. Just look at the braid, and if the braid looks all twisted up, then the line's all twisted up. So you're going to want to relax that before fully committing this line. So you'll hold it and then tighten it nice and snug. And the same thing for the bottom one. Then once you have that, both ends of that tight, go ahead and tighten it down in the wheel well. And down here it is a 12, and you will be using the double wrench method on this one because you don't want to affect the other side of the fitting that we put in there, the adapter fitting. Okay, nice and snug. Put that back in there. So we are going to bend this a little bit. Just to get that angle out some. There we go. Cool. And then before we fully commit down here on this corner, we're going to make sure that our tension on the line is exactly what we want it to be so that it doesn't hang down, and also verify that our clamp back here is straight up and down. And then we can tighten this here. You don't really need to put a wrench on the back just because the tension of the bolt in the clamp will hold itself tight so that you can tighten it. You don't necessarily need a gun to do it either. All right, then this line will run down like that. Now we can go inside the wheel well and do the same thing like we did on the other side. Okay. Then we're going to tighten down the clamps that we ran down here. Same thing, you don't have to use an Allen key on top. Tension of it will pretty much hold itself there so you can tighten it. And there's that. The line is nice and secure. This is where it lives, and that's that. Last line we're going to install is the medium length soft line here. This is the one that comes from the rear brake, runs across and goes into the out of the prop. So same like the other one, this goes under everything. and the 45 end is what goes on to the rear brake. The straight end will go onto the prop. So we'll put that on finger tight. Then it will run the same path as the long line from the caliper, right under the lip, right next to it. And if you can't get it to stay under there on its own, you can actually just tangle it up into that line and it will hold itself up. So back behind the brake booster here, there is a tab similar to the one that's on the opposite side. The soft line will route under that tab right there. All right, so that's there like that. Next piece we're gonna get our single banjo with our long banjo bolt and our 2 washers. And this is gonna go into the front port of the master. Just like the rear one, finger tight so that you can still rotate it. Then you're going to take your hard line and the end with the nut on it will attach here. Same thing, finger tight so that you can still rotate it freely. We're going to take our prop valve, and they're labeled in and out. Labeled in and out. And the fitting, the one different fitting from the other 3, goes into the out port with the pointy side facing out. No washer or anything, it just threads right in. And you're going to leave that finger tight as well. Then it threads in here. And the knob will be facing the engine. And then the other end of the hard line will thread into, crap. Hopefully your sticker peels a little cleaner than this one did. Then you're going to take your hard line, thread it into the in. Same thing, be finger tight. Then you're going to take your bracket, and it is slotted, and your 2 long Allen bolts there. Then you're going to take the bracket and you're going to slide it over the other master cylinder mount point and finger tight that. Then you're going to drop one of the Allen bolts in here, and you're going to bring the prop to the bracket. Like so. There may or may not be a little fudging involved, but it'll go on. And you're going to want to do it in this order. So if you try to do it, like if you try to mount the prop to the bracket first and you put it on, it's not exactly going to work out for you. So this is the order you want to do it in. Lines first, prop, then the bracket. Then you're going to finger tight, same thing with the hardware. And now everything is somewhat in position and finger tight. And once you're in this state here, and you have everything finger tight, like really, really finger tight, and everything is relaxed, nothing is being pinched or kinked or pulled or anything like that, then you can start tightening each individual mount point. And what you're going to want to start with, you're going to do the banjo bolt first. Do the banjo bolt first. Then you're going to do the nut. Then you're going to do the nut here that goes into the prop. Then you're going to tighten the adapter fitting into the prop. And then, of course, the line. So everything right in order. And then the very last thing you'll tighten is the nut that holds all of this together. And then once you have all the fittings over on the master side tight, then you can come back here to the rear brake and tighten that as well. Same thing, you're going to want to use the double wrench method and hold the adapter and then spin the nut. All right, and the last two steps is removing, or we'll say removing the two front ABS sensors. So here on the passenger side, you have it here, it plugs into this little harness or this little assembly over here. Squeeze it and disconnect it, and you'll just pull it out from the chassis here. It'll come right out, and you'll extract that afterwards. And you go down here to the wheel well, and it actually comes out right here behind the shock. So in order to get this out, you can use a pry tool, you could use a pry bar, you can use a flathead, you can use really your finger if you wanted to. There you go. Or you can do that. And then you just feed the sensor through. All right, and then you see it's bolted here, two 12s right to the upper control arm. You'll take those two bolts out, and then the sensor will just be hanging. So on the back of the knuckle here, you'll see that there is a single bolt right here that holds the sensor on. Once you get that bolt out, the sensor is not going to come out easily at all, or if it does come out at all. Once it's out, you're going to want to use a chisel or pry bar or something to hit the tab down, up, down, up. The point is to work the sensor back and forth and then work it out. And that's only if you want to salvage the sensor or try to sell it or do something else with it. If you don't care, just cut it and leave that in there as a placeholder. But this will not come out easily, and if it does, yeah, you're very lucky. So that will conclude the install of the FDA right-hand drive FD ABS delete kit. Hopefully you made it to the end. Hopefully you watched this video before attempting the install. Hopefully you did that. There might be some variables with your install. Of course, it's going to vary car by car, but this is the process for a stock car. If you have a single turbo or some other motor in your car or whatever it happens to be, this process will be a whole lot easier for you. At least it should be anyway. If you have any questions, suggestions, comments, feedback, or anything that you'd like to say about the kit, the install, or this video, please feel free to leave a comment down below, or you can send it directly to us to our inbox. You can call on the phone, tell us over the phone. You can come here in person, say it to our face, do whatever it is you feel you need to do. Thank you again for buying the kit, and hopefully you keep an eye on our web store, fdauto44.com, for other cool products that we come out with as far as tucking and improving and modifying and things like that of that nature. A lot of our stuff is focused more on presentation, of course, with a root and function. So, thanks again.